All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So as everyone's coming in, we want to welcome you. My name is Matt Sowers. I'm the Director of Secondary School Counseling. I'll be leading and starting the presentation. But before I do, I want to just go through another introduction. I'm going to have our Spanish-speaking interpreter come up, introduce themselves. We're going to be broadcasting tonight for people that are here. We're going to be on channel 3 if you need Spanish interpretation. So Oscar, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to help with the interpretation from Spanish to English and vice versa. I'll be sitting in the corner in case if anyone needs any assistance. Thank you.
All right, so as we get ready to go through our presentation tonight, knowing that I've got a captive audience of seniors and parents of seniors, I have a few housekeeping items. The counselors didn't know I was going to do this. A few housekeeping items. These are the top ones that are always on my list for 12th grade students. Number 1, CPR requirements. So if you're a student or a family that transferred here that has not had the opportunity to meet your graduation requirement for CPR, you will receive multiple emails, communication threads with your students and myself all throughout the fall, all throughout the spring to make sure that they are meeting that graduation requirement. Number 2, October 9th, coming up, we are going to be hosting the PSAT. It's our assessment screener for National Merit Scholars as well as other accolades. When we do that on October 9th, it's a short Wednesday. It's an early release Wednesday for students that are seniors. It's an expectation that they are here on campus. We actually have a revolving carousel where we have students walk around. They're going to have an opportunity to meet with myself and Ms. Muriel. You'll meet here shortly, our college career specialist. We do a session where we talk about specifically transcripts, everything post-grad. We review all academic grades, all academic enrollments through their entire time since they've been with us, whether it's a transfer student or if it's a student that has been with us since middle school taking coursework that's going to be reported on a high school transcript. Another session on October 9th, you get an opportunity to meet with your school counselor one-on-one. At that time, you get to talk through the college admissions process, post-secondary planning. It's just an opportunity to do a quick check-in. And then students also have an opportunity to meet with our IB-DP, Diploma Program Coordinator, and our CP, or College and Career-Related Program Coordinator. So highly encourage you to double down, speak with your senior, encourage them to come on October 9th. And then the last thing I just want to speak to in terms of accolades and awards for our seniors at the graduation ceremony in May. One thing that we speak about is graduation seals. Seals are accolades that students can earn, and then they're awarded based on different scholastic merits that your students are moving towards throughout this year and previous years. One thing, though, I encourage you to try to keep track of as best as you possibly can, it's service and community hours. So there are 3 seals, and you'll get an email from me in the spring, but I just want to put this on your radar early, is that there are three specific seals. The first one is a STEM seal. So students that are doing roughly 50 hours or more in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That is one seal that students can earn. Another one is the Seal of Excellence in Civics. So students that are just doing community service and civic duties and responsibilities, 50 hours there. And then the last one that we have is the Seal for Excellence in Science and Environment. And these are 50 community service hours that are specifics in environmental protection. So continue to have those conversations with your students. If they're involved in community activities and service hours, continue to encourage them to go out and do those responsibilities and log them. And then when the time comes for me, you won't be looking all around trying to figure out how many hours that they had. And you can help us partner together for those accolades come spring. So let's go ahead and get started. Tonight, I've got with me our student service department. Over in the corner, beginning of the alphabet, we have Dana Kieran, we have Brad McAdam, Lindsay Jacobs, and Val Chesley. All of them will come up here momentarily and speak. We also are fortunate here at Meridian High School and incredibly thankful for the expertise of Sherry Murrell, our college and career specialist. And then additional names that are part of our student service office, our registrar, Carla Sanchez. So if you're a transfer student coming in, she's been working kind of behind the scenes with our counseling team to make sure that your transcripts are ready for the college application process coming up here shortly. Also, we have Jessica Norwood, school psychologist, and Samantha Daniels, who is brand new to our district, who is our social worker. So if you need any additional supports this year working with your student, that rounds about our team. So jumping in, looking at the outline for tonight, we're going to talk about college specifics, tasks, deadlines, information about how you can find the perfect right college that meets your students' personality, their scholastic aptitude, all the things. You're also going to hear remarks from a college admissions officer. We have from College of William and Mary. Last school year, if you look at our school profile, we're very fortunate and honored. We had 5 of our seniors last school year that applied and accepted admissions and are there. So it's going to be great to hear from them coming here and speaking specifically to the college application process, answering questions about public colleges. Not with us this evening. I just want to do a quick plug for Liz McCarthy. Liz McCarthy is our transition specialist here at FCCPS. Here on the secondary campus, I asked her to share with me some additional remarks for families in her absence. She shared that she often works with students that have IEPs and at times students that have Section 504s to help plan for after-school and post-secondary opportunities, specifically when it comes to regards of working with students for college. She said she works with students to help gain self-advocacy skills appropriate for the college setting. In addition, she works and supports students with communication skills that help with corresponding with college professors, college admissions officers, as well as helping students and families identify any kind of need, whether it's accommodation, services, or supports with the post-secondary opportunities. Ms. McCarthy is also knowledgeable about procedures, again, talking about gaining accommodations if you need assistance. She's here on campus, and we have her information here on the screen, so feel free to reach out to her or any of our counselors specifically. Next up, we're going to have Mr. McAdam come in to do some story time, but he's going to talk specifically about the right fit for colleges. So please welcome Mr. Brad McAdams.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I want to preface my remarks by saying that I've been doing this for a long time, and I thought I knew what I was doing and what I was talking about, but now that I have a senior myself, I realize that all of this is easier said than done. So parents, I do understand very much where you are now with this process, and it's not easy, but we're trying to help you as much as we can. So one of a term that you will often hear when in this process is finding the right fit, and that's both from the college search side of things and the admissions side. I'm sure our guest speaker might mention later on when the admissions side is looking at applicants, they're looking for students that they think will be a good fit for their school. And then when a student is seeking out a college, they want to try to find a school that will be a good fit for them. Much like when we are buying new clothes, we probably don't just pick a brand name and say, oh, well, that's the brand I like, so I'm not even going to bother trying on the clothes. I'm just going to buy that brand. That does happen sometimes with kids. They'll look at the name of a school and be like, well, I want to go there because I've heard of it and my friends go there. But really, this process should be about trying to find the right school for you. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. There's what majors does a school have? What's the size of a school? What sort of extracurriculars do they have? What's the breakdown demographically? And this is something that Mr. Morrell is going to talk about later, but financially, is it a fit for you? That's, of course, a huge factor. So there's so many things that go into this. We want you to be aware that there's resources here at school that we offer. There's, of course, online. There's going to visit schools. There's no substitute for that. If you're able to go and physically be on a campus, that's the best way to kind of get a sense of, do I feel like I belong here? I always think back to when I was looking at schools many, many years ago, and I went to visit a very small Catholic school. I am not Catholic. I never thought I would end up being taught by priests, but I went to this school in Vermont called St. Michael's College, and when I got on that campus, I just felt like I belonged there. There was a sense of community that meant something to me. So sometimes you don't really know until you get to that campus. But here at school, at Meridian, we do have many reps that come from colleges to visit here, and students can sign up for those visits. I believe we have over 100 schools this year that are visiting this fall. So students can sign up for those visits through Naviance. And we certainly encourage them to do that. Sometimes there could be just a couple kids sitting with an admissions rep, and that's a great opportunity to ask questions and really get a feel for what that school offers. There's also, of course, college fairs that are available in the region. Ms. Morrell posts a newsletter weekly, and she puts out all that information, so look for that. And there's just, of course, online through Naviance or other search engines that you can use to kind of figure out and put in different criteria of things that might be important to you and try to create a list that way. So there's many opportunities to do that, but I do think it's important to not just be like, well, here are the 5 schools I've heard of, so those are the ones I'm going to apply to. It's important that students are doing a little more research than that so they can try to find a place that sort of is meaningful to them and will be a place that they feel comfortable over those 4 years. All right, thank you.
So good to see you all here tonight. Next, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Northern Virginia Community College, or NOVA, which I imagine many of you have heard about. It's only about 10 minutes away, even though there are several locations. Tonight, I'll be highlighting some of the opportunities they provide, as well as the transfer possibilities that I feel like a lot of people don't always realize. So for those that aren't interested in a 4-year university or those looking to save thousands in tuition, NOVA, it could be a really good option. They have so many different fields available for students in their program of studies, and you can explore some of the curriculum or pathways on their website, which we have everything linked here for you. Another perk is that the application process can be delayed until much later in the school year. So mid-late spring, I think usually after spring break, which I know the beginning of senior year can be really crazy. So I know that's something a lot of students appreciate. I also want to note that for students that might not be able to attend their dream school at the moment for a variety of reasons, similar to like what Mr. McAdam was saying, finding that perfect fit for them, NOVA offers a guaranteed admission agreement. To graduates who meet the agreement requirements of the college or university where they want to transfer. So this is all linked, this third tab right here, and it includes more than 40 area colleges and universities. So you can search on that for specific ones to see if they're listed, but some of the really popular ones that are available are CNU, JMU, UVA, VCU, Tech, William & Mary, who you'll hear from later tonight, but definitely want to make sure that is on your radar if that could be a good option for your student. So after attending for 2 years and meeting the requirements, students can transfer to and graduate from the chosen university while saving significant amount in tuition and other expenses. When I was in college, I actually got to know some people who were at school with me, and they ended up with the same degree on their wall, but they saved tens of thousands of dollars. So definitely something to consider. So these links have a ton of helpful information, and I encourage you to take a look at those if you are interested, and reach out to your counselor, Ms. Murrell, or our NOVA admission officer who comes here throughout the school year, Ms. Alford, with any questions that you all have. I will turn things over to Ms. Chesley for the application process.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So now that your students might have an idea of what schools they might want to apply to, they really need to be mindful of the deadlines because, unlike high school where deadlines can be extended, college deadlines are hard and fast. There are a couple different admission plans or admission types. The first that people probably are familiar with is regular decision. So that means that a student probably won't have to apply until January 1 is a typical deadline, January 1, February 1, even March 1. And those students are not only going to be sending, or we're going to be sending on behalf of them, their transcript through junior year, but the colleges are also going to look at how they're doing first semester senior year. So if a student maybe didn't do the best junior year and really wanted to show a college, okay, look at what I'm taking senior year, look at how well I'm doing, they might want to just apply regular decision, and that's perfectly fine. I know a lot of kids get wrapped up and think I have to apply early, everyone else is applying early, I want to find out early, but you don't necessarily have to apply early. Early action is a non-binding agreement, so that means that yes, you can apply early if you have everything ready and are confident with the grades that you're sending, which again are only up through the end of junior year, and then you'll find out earlier in the process. You don't necessarily have to commit to that school, but you just find out a little earlier. Early decision, which our rep will talk about, as William and Mary does have early decision, that's a binding agreement. So that means that you are telling that college, I'm applying early, and if I get in, I'm going to go there. No matter what the aid is, no matter if you get into another school that you then apply to, because you're required to withdraw your applications from any other school. So you really have to be 100% sure that this is the school for you. And many times it's a great option for students, but it's not for everyone. Rolling admission simply means that as soon as you apply, you probably hear pretty quickly whether or not you get in or not. A lot of these schools don't even ask for letters of recommendation, so that as soon as your application is submitted, you are finding out within a couple of weeks. And again, with regular decision, rolling admission, and early action, you don't have to actually tell the school if you're going to go there until that May 1, we call it decision day. So students still have time. If they're not able to visit a school before they apply, it's always great to visit after they've gotten in, get a feel for the campus. Many schools offer like spring days or weekends for admitted students, so you can go and get a feel for the campus. There's another something called restrictive early action. This is a little trickier. It allows you to apply to one school early action, and you can't apply to other schools early action. And not many schools have this, but Ms. Muriel can go in more in depth about it. But just be mindful of how you're applying to a school. And also how you're applying, you need to communicate that with your counselor through Naviance so that we know, okay, what is your first deadline? I know many of your students have already come in and they're meeting with us, and it's awesome. If your student hasn't, definitely encourage them to do that, to get things moving along. Now I'm going to pass it to Ms. Kieran, who's going to talk about the components.
All right. Hi, guys. Okay, so college applications, for the most part, have a lot of moving pieces. I think that's probably where we see students struggle the most, because it is the first time they're being asked to coordinate adults and their own actions all together, and they're really expected to kind of take point on organizing a bunch of different adults turning in something on their behalf, and it can be a little overwhelming for students. So the more organized they can be, it really helps us to make sure we can do our part to get all of their things in on time. So students are obviously filling out their applications. It's going to have their essay, extracurriculars, honors that they've done. Another part of it will be their high school record. So there's two main ways that a college will get a student's record. I guess the traditional way is through an official transcript, which we send through Naviance once students have requested them in a timely manner. A lot of schools are moving into what is called self-reported academic records. You will see that a lot at bigger schools. Virginia Tech, Penn State, Pitt, Arizona, Florida, a lot of the bigger Florida schools, University of Florida, South Carolina, they've all moved over to self-reported grades, which means that we will never send them a transcript until the very end if they've decided to go to that school. After students submit their Common App application, they will be invited by the school through a link through their portal to go in and self-report their academic record from high school. And it is 100% on them, on the honors system, to accurately input every high school level course and every grade they've ever received. So that is becoming much more popular. Parents are usually shocked about it just because it's very different, right? Like everything used to be verified by schools, but it just streamlines the process for bigger schools who are going through more applications. So a lot of the rolling schools, students self-report their grades so that everything is coming from one place. Sorry? Yes. So the question was, I don't know if the recording can pick it up. So the question was, do the students enter it manually or is there a system? No, the students sit there and enter it manually. So it's a little tedious, and we're happy to help students look over it and double check it. They can also reach out to us for an unofficial copy of their transcript. It's all in PowerSchool, but if it's easier to have the transcript there and then while they're entering it, we're always happy to get them, email them an unofficial copy. Test scores are another component of application, ish. Some schools are requiring tests. Some schools are test optional, where students have the option to report their scores. And some schools, like schools in California, are test blind, where they won't look at it even if you send it. So again, that's kind of one of those things that the students need to be really well informed of. For each of the schools they're applying to, what does that school want from them? Because every school is going to have a different answer. So I wish it were more streamlined for their purposes, but every school is going to really want something different, so they have to kind of be in charge of knowing that. And then the last part are recommendation letters. Students have, hopefully by now, asked teachers. We asked them to start asking teachers in June before they left last year. Some of them are also adding on like another teacher this year. No more than 2, please. And then if a school requires a school counselor letter of recommendation, students don't have to put that into Naviance as a request. They just need to let us know. We write a letter for any student who needs it. And then sometimes certain applications will accept what they call other recommenders, coaches, bosses, someone who runs their scout troop. Those letters can be submitted, but those are submitted directly through Common App. This is kind of the same information in a different format. But this is more specific as to who is sending each of the different pieces. So again, this is something that we try to drill into the students, but again, it is a lot for them. So any extra kind of organization, I think that they appreciate. So obviously the students are submitting their application. 95% of them are submitting them through Common App, and everything is happening through Common App. There are some schools that don't use Common App, but most of them at this point do. So they're doing their application, they are doing their essay. Common App has 7 prompts. They pick one, they do one essay, and it goes to every school. And then if the school requires self-reported academic records, they're also inputting those. I guess I would also add in there, students are doing, it's part of the application, but a lot of schools will also have supplemental essays that students will need to do. What counselors in our office is sending is official transcripts if the school requires them. We also send what is called a mid-year report. Students do not have to request this. They have to request their initial transcript the first time. After that, it's all kind of an automatic process. Mid-year reports is after semester 1 is done. We calculate a semester 1 grade for students and send an updated transcript out to every school they have in Naviance. So for students doing regular decision deadlines, or maybe a student who applied early and got deferred to regular admission, those mid-year reports can be really helpful as long as they're kind of keeping up their grades where they should. We send a secondary school report, which is something that we fill out in Naviance that is a goes to Common App. We send in our school profile. So that is a document where our transcript and our school is kind of contextualized for admissions officers. So it explains a little bit about the city, about the school, about why we're not a Fairfax school, what classes we offer, what options students have. There's a lot of data in there about SAT scores and how many kids are going to four-year schools and all of that. Our grading system is in there. So really for a school like William and Mary, I would imagine they kind of know our school and our transcripts right now because it's just, they get a lot of our kids. But let's say your student is applying to a small private school in Illinois. That school profile accompanies their transcript so that the schools really understand our grading system and why things look the way they do, because every school is going to do it a little differently. And then we send in a counselor recommendation if it's needed. There is a world in which they're applying to schools where there is no letter needed from a counselor at all. Again, it's something we rely on students to let us know so that we can be as informed as possible. And the big part with that is students, and we're about to hit one of the first deadlines, students really need to, especially if they need a letter, fill out their senior worksheet, which we've been asking them to do. They need to, actually you guys need to get us your brag sheets, parent brag sheets. And all of that should happen about 4 weeks, ideally, before their first deadline. So I actually sent out a message, we sent out a Schoology message the other day because we are approaching about 4 weeks out from October 15th deadlines, saying, if you have an upcoming October 15th deadline and you haven't met in person with your counselor, you need to do it now. It was effective. We got a lot of calendar invites after that. So your kids know how to find us. They just need prompting. So when we're coming up on November 1, obviously that is a big deadline. Kiddos need to come in and meet with us as close to or before October 1st as possible. But we also ask them to be ready with all of those documents that they need if they need a letter from us. Teacher letters of recommendation, those are requested through Naviance. Hopefully students have already had those conversations. If teachers need something from the kids, they'll let them know, like a form to fill out or an interview. Sometimes they meet with them. And again, students have to request those through Naviance. Everything is sent through Naviance. So if your student is telling you that they're requesting a teacher through Common App, just tell them no. Like, your counselor told me everything happens through Naviance. And then again, for test scores, if a school needs official test scores, which very few do, but there are some, the students are responsible for going directly to ACT or their College Board account and having official score reports sent out. A lot of schools that are optional have also gone self-reporting, so the students can report it inside of Common App and they don't actually have to send official score reports until later. These are the deadlines we have passed out and posted up on Schoology to students, and we'll continue to post every time we get close to one of those deadlines. So again, their first deadline for our purposes is really the most important. As many applications as they turn in after that, teacher documents, our documents are already in there, so the system will just keep sending things out, but it's their first deadline that we need them to really be in communication with us and teachers to make sure we can get in what we need to get in for them on time. Yeah?
There was something on the last slide about letters of recommendation that the student needs to allocate the letters to individual colleges.
Yeah. Okay, so for the video, a parent asked about what it means to allocate the letter to individual schools. That happens in Naviance. So when they go into the part of Naviance where they put in requests for letters of recommendation, there's a drop-down menu with every teacher's name in the school. So they pick a teacher, and then it will have their list of colleges there, and they can either select all of the schools for a letter to go to, or they can get specific. Usually the times they need to be specific about allocating is a school like JMU only accepts one letter, and then the system will shut it off after that. So we'll often sit with the kids, and this is what we help them think through. We're like, okay, so you have a letter from Miss Jason and Mr. Wiesna. who do you want, like which letter do you want JMU to get? So that they have to think about which one goes in first, and usually it's most relevant if a school only accepts one. If a school doesn't accept any, the system will not let them put in a designation for that. It kind of shuts it off automatically. But a lot of schools will allow, 3, 4 letters. They're not requiring them, but they'll allow it. So for the most part, they don't have to make too many decisions. It's usually for schools that only allow one. So whoever they put in first, it will take that letter and then like close off the portal for that school. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they can do all of that allocating in one shot.
Yes, all of it is in one shot. That's why it's usually easiest for them to have their list kind of ready and in Naviance and connected before we put in like requests for teacher letters, because then they're only having to do it once instead of going back and forth. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the question was, does it matter what grade level the teacher was from? And absolutely, yes. Ideally, the teacher should be from 11th grade or 12th grade. If the last time they saw that teacher was in 9th grade, we tell them that's not going to help them at all. It's probably going to hurt their application because an admissions officer might wonder, like, why are they only getting a teacher from 9th grade? Well, that's what they look like in 9th grade. Surely they've matured, progressed, gotten better, gotten stronger. So it kind of can leave a lot of questions for an admissions officer. So 11th and 12th graders when they take their most rigorous classes. So we really want the teacher to come from that pool. Mm-hmm. They have the question was, do the students see what's in their letter? And the answer is no. So part of their Common App process, they waive their FERPA rights, which means they waive their right to see the materials that are a part of their application that get sent. Schools prefer them to do that because they want letters that students are not seeing, just because that really indicates to them that the teachers are being as forthcoming and honest as possible. Students are not allowed to see and should not see their letters of recommendation. So when they make a decision, usually it's based on one is a core teacher and one isn't, and like then the core teacher is probably the better teacher to send for the one letter. Sometimes they just have a personal preference. It's not very scientific when they pick. Oh, yeah, so sorry, Ms. Jacobs is reminding me to remind you guys about the checklist. So we have a checklist that we made and we sent out when we were sending out the parent brag sheets. That is kind of a checklist for juniors and seniors. It really is helpful and a good place for them to refer back to. If at any point in this process they get lost, if your student doesn't have that, they can email us, we can send them another copy, and we can send you guys a copy as well. Okay, that was a lot. Okay, so now Ms. Morrell is going to talk about how you pay for all of this.
All right, not the fun parts. College costs are exorbitant. You could look at going to Nova. Full-time student tuition is about $6,500. All the way up to $100,000 per year. So having the conversation with your student about budget really helps avoid some sad situations come April when they've applied to these wonderful schools, they're invested in them, they feel like they've found their place. If it's just not going to work financially, those are tough situations. So, how do you pay for it? Well, need-based financial aid is the first thing. Need-based financial aid, you apply for using the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and I have to be the bearer of bad news to tell you that the Department of Education has already bumped back the deadline, or the date that they're opening the FAFSA. Historically, you would be your students applying for admission at the same time that you as a family are submitting the financial aid forms, and they become available generally October 1st. Well, the FAFSA got a facelift last year after many decades, and the FAFSA now takes about an hour or so to submit, but the Department of Education is going to troubleshoot a little bit more before they release it this year. So the FAFSA is not going to come out until December 1, by December 1 is the language. What that means for those students who are applying early decision and early action is that they may learn their admission decision in December and we will celebrate with them. But if financial aid isn't processed at the same time, there likely will be a lag from when students are going to, and families are going to find out, is this affordable for our family? And push the first batch of those letters coming out, I would anticipate in January, rather than having all of the information to celebrate over winter break and feel like the decision is made. So just be forewarned of that. If your student does not have citizenship, the Virginia Alternate Student Aid, the VASA, is a form that families can fill out to apply for aid from Virginia to attend public schools in Virginia. So that's an option. The link is available on the slide deck, which will be posted for you as well. So I mentioned the FAFSA. That's usually the starting point, but many private colleges and universities also require the CSS profile, College Scholarship Service Profile. It's a division of College Board, SAT group. It's a more invasive FAFSA. Schools that require both the FAFSA and the CSS profile last year, when financial aid was delayed until April and May for some of the seniors to be receiving their packages. So I'm crossing my fingers, it's all gonna be a better timeline for all of you. But the schools that received the FAFSA had some information to go on, and they have been able to award preliminary financial aid packages. Any federal funds are tied to the completion of the FAFSA, so they're not able to distribute those funds until the FAFSA timeline is completed. But know that some schools require both applications for financial aid. Financial aid awards, what do they consist of? Well, grants, scholarships, don't have to be repaid, the gift money. However it's earned, it's gift money, and it's wonderful to cut those exorbitant tuitions down. Work-study positions, on-campus jobs, working in dining services, working in student activities, all kinds of possibilities working on campus as a way for students to be working, earning money to cover their book expenses or perhaps apply that towards tuition, could be allocated in a financial aid package. And then loans, whether it's student loans or parents and guardians are approved for loans. Those do have to be repaid back, and I would say make sure you have that conversation with your student and how vested they are getting into taking out a loan year after year. The federal loans, the dollar amounts can increase from year to year. And by graduation, 4 years later, Stafford loans max out at about $28,000, $29,000. That's a sizable commitment that your student is making. So I encourage you to have those honest conversations to let them know when they graduate, 6 months later, those loans start coming due and they're going to be expected to make those payments. Now let's switch to the scholarship side, the earned money side. The largest dollars tend to come from the colleges and universities themselves. And you've heard an awful lot about how to apply to college. The precursor step is building that diverse college list. I tell students to fill the 3 buckets. You want to have those target schools right in the middle. You are in that mid 50% range for GPA, rigor of your program, standardized test scores. It could go either way for acceptance or denial, just based upon the overall pool. But you have that middle match school. And then you flank either end. The reach schools, and there's reach schools for everyone, those single-digit percentages and the accepting students. And then those, for lack of a better term, the safety schools, that they're at the top of the applicant pool. They're the top 25% of students who typically apply to that institution and are admitted. I see some students who say money is a big factor, legitimately so, in planning their college path. And so they don't apply to a lot of reach schools, but they stack their application pool with a number of those safety schools that have robust merit scholarships, so that hopefully when they receive those acceptances, they're having scholarship funds that tag along with that acceptance. How do they get those awards? I wish I could say that there was a universal policy of the 4,000 colleges and universities, they all follow the same system. They don't. So this is where your student needs to be a good researcher and find out what does one school require, because it could be very different than another school. That some schools have a whole separate application process to be an applicant for scholarships. Other admission offices say, we're going to look at your complete application for admission. That will be the grounds to make our decision to award scholarships. Tremendous variation in between. One of my pet peeves, and I share it with students with transparency. Some schools will say, our regular decision deadline is February 1st. But if you want to be a contender for merit scholarships, you really need to apply by the November 1st early action date. So this is another angle that your student needs to be a good researcher and find out, are the merit scholarship deadlines, what are they and what do they have to do, and are they synonymous with any of the application plans, or is there a priority date for scholarship consideration? Private organizations give scholarships too. There are a number of those that are listed in Naviance that your student has access to. I will post the scholarship opportunities that are stewarded by the Falls Church Education Foundation, and I intentionally don't post the applications until after the end of first marking period, because the mid-year reports that school counselors send out, we want them to be strong for your students. So they don't have to shift to filling out applications for Falls Church Education Foundation stewarded scholarships until end of January, beginning of February is when I will push those out. However, if you want to do some research on your student's behalf, or your student has a lull and would like to do some research, I can tell you that all of the scholarships that I am aware of that will be continuing for our graduating class of 2025 are currently posted in Naviance. You can't click to the application, but you can look through and read the description of that scholarship, and your student can favorite it and say, I'm going to be a future educator, and there's a $1,000 scholarship for students like me, and that's one that I want to apply for. So you can narrow down the list and know what the marching orders are come February when those applications open up. But the majority of them will be due roughly 6 weeks later on Friday, March the 14th. And there's other search engines available for scholarships to explore as well. Do not ever pay to get a list of scholarships that the information is available without charging you or your student to gain access to it. So Naviance has some, but the other scholarship search engines have an abundance as well. So paying for it is stressful. Applying is stressful, but we are here to support you and your student. But I want to turn things over to our guest speaker. Miss Knight is an assistant dean of admission at the College of William & Mary, she's also an alum herself, has worn the hat of being a school counselor at a school in Williamsburg for a number of years as well, and has jumped to the other side of the table and is now the admission officer for many of our Northern Virginia schools, and has lovely travel territory to read other parts of the country as well. So I am delighted that she has joined us and traveled up from Williamsburg to be with us to share nuggets of wisdom about not only a fantastic Virginia public institution, but also that sense of who's a good fit for a liberal arts school. So with that, thank you.
So before I get started, I just want to say a huge thank you and huge kudos to the Student Services Department. They are fantastic. Having been a school counselor and having been to a lot of different regions and kind of seen this is first rate, getting all of this great information on college and the college application process. So you guys are in really wonderful hands. So kudos to you guys. That said, too, I, having been a school counselor, will also reiterate to you guys, everything that your school counselors are telling you is good information and absolutely correct, and you should definitely take to heart the things that they talk to you about and the things that are suggested, because having been on the other side of things, it's very accurate information and very thorough, so you're in great hands. I'm also speaking to you from the lens of someone who just recently got their kiddo through college. He's not a kiddo anymore, I guess. So we did the application process with him, so there were kind of some fun things that we picked up along the way, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit. But I'll kind of start with just some fun things about William & Mary. We are the second oldest institution in the United States. Can anybody tell me who the oldest is? Sorry, the school counselor teacher is kicking in. Close. Harvard, yes. Okay, so we are second to Harvard there. However, our plans do predate them. So we like to say our plans were first. But we have a lot of firsts. We were the first Royal Charter. We were the first school to establish an elective system. We were the first school to establish an honor system, which you can see in the classrooms. And it's very rich in history. As Ms. Murrell mentioned, we are in the Williamsburg area, so it is rich in history with, you'll walk out on the street and you could see a horse-drawn carriage, butter churning, glass blowing, but we are also civilized. We have your Targets, we have your Trader Joe's, Chick-fil-A's, we have an awesome outlet, we even have a fun amusement park, so there's lots of great things to do in that area. So those are all kind of things to keep in mind too as you're making your list. What's to do in the area? Is it a small area? Do I want to be in the city, or do I want to kind of be in a smaller town kind of environment? Do I want something kind of in between? So those are all kind of factors to keep in mind. A couple more fun facts about William & Mary. We are a liberal arts school, but about 60% of our students major in some form of STEM. So just because you apply to a liberal arts school or end up going to a liberal arts school doesn't mean that you won't have STEM opportunities. So that's why it's really important to do that research on things. Like many liberal arts schools, our focus is really on experiential learning. And we are academically rigorous, but I like to say it's fun rigor. And what I mean by that is we really focus on exploring your passions. And I think that that's the case with a lot of liberal arts schools. The focus is getting you that opportunity to really dive into your interests and kind of also at the same time you're diving into your interests, learning those important life skills that will get you ready and get you out there in your careers. So that kind of is all elements that work together. But we have three main components of experiential learning that we really focus in. One is internships. Another piece is study abroad opportunities, and then also another piece is research. So you'll have opportunities to do all of those things, and the large majority of our students end up doing research, studying abroad, doing all of those wonderful things during the course of their 4 years, and it is possible to get it all in. So that's definitely things you want to keep in mind. Do I want to have those type of experiences? What kind of experiences do I want to have? So that's all pieces that go together with that. We have three main parts to our curriculum. Our students enter undeclared. So you do not have to declare your major or your minor until your junior year, which is really great because it does give you those opportunities to explore your interest. That said, you can have an idea of what you want to do and dive right in. But you will get a chance to kind of explore your interests, and that's really a focus of the liberal arts schools, is having that opportunity to really expand your interests. Our three main areas of curriculum are in your classes in your major and minor, which you have some time to kind of figure that out. Electives from our wonderful elective system, and some of those elective credits can be waived through AP, IB, or dual enrollment scores. So that piece of it can be waived, but we do have a fantastic elective system that allows you to, again, really, really explore, and we want you to find your niche. But my favorite piece of the curriculum is what's called the CALL curriculum, college curriculum. A lot of schools will have that piece of the curriculum. What kind of makes ours unique is it's in these very kind of fun niche areas. One of our classes is like physiology of a marathon, where you explore kind of what your body goes through as you run a marathon. So it's these really fun topics. I had a student who was a pre-med major and fell in love with film studies doing the CALL curriculum. So deep exploration of topics, learning how to study cross-curricularly, like maybe combining science and history. We have what's called the Bray School, which does some really valuable research, and it's kind of ancestry and genealogical tracing of families throughout history. So it's kind of got those science components, but it also has history. So we have a lot of that cross-curricular studies. And so that's kind of a piece of the CALL curriculum. And then, of course, global perspectives, where you have the opportunity to potentially study abroad if you want to. And then also opportunities to do your own individual research. And at William & Mary, you can start as soon as your first year, and it doesn't have to be in kind of your major or your minor. So those are just kind of some fun facts about William & Mary, and kind of a lot of the things I shared can be kind of translated generally to liberal arts schools, and kind of some of the differences there. But I definitely want to make sure I dive into the application process, because I know you guys want to hear about that. And I'm going to touch on a few things and kind of give you a little peek behind the curtain of how we look at our applicants. But before I start, there's a couple tips. I've done several workshops this summer, and I kind of have picked up some things from some of the admission officer pros. One of them, and this is probably something you guys have heard before, so sorry if it's a repeat, but one of them is, do not use your school email as you're doing Common App or Coalition, as you're going on and doing these applications, because we will continue to email you throughout this whole process. And if you're graduating in May, we still send emails after that. So we want you to make sure you're getting all of the emails, and that we have something consistently, a consistent way to communicate with you. What we recommend to students, and this is just up to your personal discretion, but to start a brand new email, like a Gmail or something like that, but one that you and your parents both have the password to. And that is just your email that you use for your college applications. And the advantage of this is you and your parents are going to be working together and engaging together in this process, but also because you get such a flurry of email from all of the different schools, it helps to have a second set of eyes on things, because oftentimes you'll get emails about scholarships and other opportunities that are time sensitive, and you don't want to miss out on those opportunities. So having a parent maybe checking more regularly than maybe you have time to can be really, really helpful. Another kind of fun tip that I kind of discovered helping my son through college was, as he was applying, we would take a time once a week, because I was driving him crazy, because at the time I was a school counselor. I was literally talking to him 24/7 about, well, have you applied? Have you done this yet? Have you requested your transcripts? So I was literally driving him insane. So we kind of discovered a good compromise was, each week we had a set time where we sat down and kind of talked about where he was in the process and what he had left that he needed to do. That's a perfect time to pull out those checklists and kind of review them. So that is a very great way to team build, and then it's also a good way to give your student that flexibility. So that helped save our relationship quite a bit. So those are just some fun pro tips before I kind of dive in. So as I said before, a lot of these things that I'm going to share with you can be applied to many of the public schools. Obviously, there's variations, and that's why it's so important to make sure you kind of know the subtle differences in requirements from schools. A really great resource, and again, you probably have heard this, but in the supplemental piece of Common App, they have an information section, and that literally has all your deadlines there, that has links, it has application fees, fee waiver information, all kinds of testing information, all kinds of great information. So definitely utilize that, and that can really, really help you get organized as you kind of go through that process. So William & Mary reads our applications holistically. And what I mean by that is we put equal weight in every single piece of the application. And so I'm going to go through and kind of talk to you a little bit about how each of those pieces kind of work with us and kind of some of my recommendations. A lot of this can be generalized, so hopefully that'll be helpful for when you apply to other schools too. But we have several layers, and most schools do this too. So there will be probably about 4 or 5 hands that touch your application. So we assign our reads based on region, and a lot of schools also do that. So I will be reading for this region. Usually your regional admission person, your rep, does that first initial read, and we're just kind of gathering information. And then it's going to touch another hand, one of probably someone that kind of a team leader in our application process. So they'll look at it. Then after that, it could potentially go to committee. So the application, and it could meet in committee multiple times. So an application could go through several, but the way we set this up is so that we can make sure we're giving everybody a fair chance and we're looking at every detail of the application. And a lot of other schools work that way too. So just kind of diving in, we look at students in 2 major factors. We look at academic qualities, and then we also look at personal qualities. Academic qualities, we're gonna look at your transcript, but we are only going to look at you within the context of your specific school. So we're gonna be looking at that school profile and kind of looking at the courses. And it's easier for the regional first reader people because we're really familiar, as mentioned, with your area. So we kind of know what types of courses are offered. But we definitely are looking at those school profiles. And what we're looking to see is that you're pushing yourself within the context of your school. So we look at what's offered by your school, and if you're kind of maximizing that rigor and working really hard or really trying to expand yourself and doing all different kinds of diverse profile of classes, those are kind of some of the things that we look for. So we're not going to compare someone from Meridian to someone from Langley because we just look within the context of schools. We do want to see at William & Mary, we are academically rigorous, so we do like to see those AP, those IB or dual enrollment classes, and that's you're challenging yourself. There are some major bases that we look for, and I want to stress that this is recommended, not required, but we like to see if a person can go to calculus with their math. That's a good thing. If you can't, as high as you could potentially go with it, we look for your lab sciences like biology, chemistry, physics. We'd like to see an English and a history in your schedule every year if you can potentially do it. We also like to see if you can get to level 4 beyond of a world language. That's also kind of a base that we look for. So some schools might have different bases that they look for because we are a little more on the rigorous end. That's kind of some of the things that we specifically look for in your transcript. So we do that transcript review and we look at that piece of it. And those are kind of helps us see your academic qualities. We look for trends. Was there a point in which your grades dropped? And then we would maybe look further on your application to see if there's some kind of explanation for that. Additional information section is really great for that. So if you have something you feel like is relevant or might impact our kind of perception of your transcript, the additional information section is a great place to put that. So just kind of putting that plug in there. So we look at that transcript piece. Letters of rec, we have a record of 31 letters of rec. Don't do that. We get the question a lot, and I know like there are some schools where you literally can only submit 1 letter, but with schools where you can submit as many as you want, we often get the question, how many letters of recommendation is good? We require a counselor letter of recommendation. So in addition to that, we usually recommend 2. And it could be a teacher, it could be a coach, it could be It could be an employer. What we are looking for with those letters of rec is someone who can really speak to those personal qualities, the PQ end of things, like can speak to your character and can show growth. Now, with schools where you enter where you're entering a major or kind of declaring a major right out of the gate, it might be good to have letters of recommendations from those specific areas. With William & Mary, where you're entering undeclared, we're just looking for people who know you really well. And don't shy away from somebody that you might have struggled a little bit in the class initially, but you really turned things around and you worked hard with the teacher. We love to see that. We love to see that growth, that work ethic, those lessons learned. So that's kind of the things that we look for with the letters of rec piece. Extracurriculars, we are not looking, I know that this is a tricky one. We're not looking for a million things. What we're looking for is a handful of things that show depth and commitment. And of course, you've got your leadership and your service, and that's really, really important. But also, we want to see those passions. I know that sounds cheesy, but we want to see like you kind of exploring your interests, and that's where we can get that piece where if you're a good fit with us or not. I had a student, she didn't have a crochet club at her school, and she started that crochet club, and it was like 30 people strong, and so that really impressed me. So you just never know what might be worth it or impressive. I always say mention jobs, because we also look at that. That's relevant. Commitment, long-term commitments to jobs. Work ethic. That also gives us a picture of what you've had to balance if you're working long hours. So those are kind of the things that we look for with respect to the extracurriculars. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the pieces that are oftentimes optional. This can be a kind of a gray area, but I would say with respect to William and Mary, you want to do the optional, things. You want to give us as big of a picture as we can. That said, if there's something that you're unable to complete, we're not going to hold that against you either. But if you can do an optional piece, and I'll get into kind of what that entails in a second, you want to do that. A good example of that is our essays. So we have the Commonwealth, the General Common App essay, and everyone does that piece of it. For that, we're kind of looking at your unique story. It does not have to be a Pulitzer Prize winning work of literature. We are actually just looking for your voice. And a lot of times we can tell if something is ChatGPT'd or any of those things. We want to hear your voice and we want to hear your story. My most favorite essay was a student that wrote about how she started a tradition of making s'mores for everyone in her neighborhood, and how she built a community and how that community was so important to her, and that was something she wanted to bring to college. It's not something that you would think, okay, this is the most impressive thing I've ever heard. No, it just was something very unique and kind of special. So you want to kind of look at it from that angle. You want to tell a unique story, something about you, like kind of what drives you or what you're excited about. Feel free to reach out to your admission folks. We love helping out with stuff like that. If you're stuck or if you want our opinions on things, we love to do that too. With that essay, you kind of want to go in that area. Now, the optional essays, which are oftentimes supplemental essays, do them. That's my recommendation. Do the supplemental essays. This is where you can really talk about specific pieces of schools. Like, reach out to professors. If you're interested in potentially researching like the Bray School, like I mentioned earlier, reach out to the professor in charge of that and have a conversation. And then in your essay, you can say, I spoke with the Bray School, and it would really align with my interests, and that's kind of part of why I'm interested in William and Mary. So do those supplemental pieces and make those personal connections. Another big thing that you want to do is talk to students. A lot of schools have opportunities for you to talk to students in different majors or minors, so you can have those conversations there. We also offer something that is my understanding is fairly unique. We offer interviews with seniors. That is another optional thing that I would encourage you to do if you can. If you can, it's not going to hurt you. But interviews are only going to enhance and give us that big picture of you. My recommendation with interviews, it's a conversation with a student. So look at it as you finding out about that school, what you're excited about. So think about questions you might want to know about that school and kind of see it more as a back and forth in a conversation. Our interviewers are very kind, and they are trained to make you feel comfortable, and they're not judging you. They're giving, the types of notes they're giving us are, Ella, you would love this student. They really, really love to sing. They love the arts. You would just totally love this student. That's the kind of notes we get, and I feel like this student would really fit in with this specific club at William & Mary. So that really helps make those connections. Any little piece you can do kind of makes those personal connections. We are test optional, kind of jumping into that. And that's a tough decision to make when a school is test optional. I would say a lot of schools have like those suggested brackets or those median brackets for accepted students. So check those out, have conversations with your counselors, that type of thing. And I realize I'm going pretty long, but I just love talking about the application process. Sorry. Okay, so I will finish really quickly with financial aid. I realize that's not the most fun thing to finish with, but I just want to reinforce that it's worth it to do the FAFSA. It's also worth it. We have the CSS profile at William & Mary, so you can do the FAFSA CSS profile. Something that a lot of schools have that I would recommend checking out is net price calculator. You can see that on the typically on the financial aid page of most colleges have a net price calculator. It's a great way to discover if that school is an affordable place for you. Our scholarships, our merit-based scholarships, you're automatically considered. We have three main applications. We've got early decision 1 and 2. They are binding, and we already discussed you definitely want to do early decision 1 or 2 if that is your top choice and you're really, really sure that that's a school for you. There are some advantages to early decision. You do have a greater chance of acceptance. There's a higher acceptance rate with early decision, so that's kind of the advantage of it. Our deadlines, early decision 1 is November 1st, and then early decision 2, January 5th. That's for those students who really want to commit, but they maybe need extra time for those essays or those letters of rec. And then we also our regular decision. We also have a transfer deadline in the fall and a transfer deadline in the spring. If you decide to do MVCC and transfer, a lot of our awesome students come from there too, so that's an awesome route too. I know I've talked a lot, but it's just something I'm really passionate about, but I can open it up if we have time for questions. Or thank you guys so much, you've been wonderful. Absolutely. So the question was, do we give preference to Virginia students over students that are applying out of state? And so the answer to that is yes. We have an acceptance rate overall of 33%, but our out-of-state students, the acceptance rate is closer to 40%. So, and of our accepted students, 60% of our accepted students are in state. Another benefit to applying somewhere in state is, and this is the case with a lot of schools, we can meet up to 100% of demonstrated need with in-state applicants. So that's kind of an advantage of applying in-state too. Other questions? I know I've been talking a lot. Yes. Okay, so to submit or not to submit is our question for SAT or ACT. I would say take a look at those median scores. I'll just give an example for us. We had about 60% of our accepted students applied with test scores last year. Kind of the bracket of scores, or that median score band, was 1380 to 1530. And then for the ACT, it was 32 to 34. To me, that seems ridiculously high. So even if you're not within that band, but you may be close, or your scores are high in with respect to other students at your school. So we also look at that on the school profile, what the SAT score range was. And if your score is up there for your school or in that median band, it might be worth it to submit those scores. But it's not an exact science, so sorry. Other questions? I did talk a lot. Maybe I covered a lot of things. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so very much for your remarks, to give those behind the curtain perspective that feels so mysterious to many. I'm going to close us out here just by letting you know about some upcoming programs, that there are a number of ways that you can continue to learn about lots of different colleges and universities. I'm going to start off, though, with the funding piece. Next week, on Tuesday night, I've coordinated a webinar with the college funding coach out of Tyson's that you can tune into to hear an hour to an hour and a half long presentation about how to pay for college. This is an opportunity that can be fantastic for families that are on the cusp of a large tuition bill, but also if your next door neighbor has a kindergartner and they want to think about what should they be doing long term to plan for future college expenses for their little ones. So it is open up to everyone district-wide to participate in that program. There's a college fair coming up, a couple college fairs coming up. In October, the National Association for College Admission Counseling has 2 virtual opportunities, but shortly followed after that, in October the 19th and even the 20th, are 2 college fairs in person in Northern Virginia, the Mid-Atlantic IB World College Fair, and then there's a program at George Mason University. So Saturday, Sunday, come closer by going to George Mason. The IB College Fair is down in Woodbridge at Garfield High School. We will be offering a field trip for students to go to the Alconza College Fair during the school day coming up in October. And then Alfred Street Baptist Church in Old Town Alexandria has an HBCU college fair. They offer hybrid opportunities. So there's Friday evening virtual programs, but then Saturday during the day, it will be at the St. James in Springfield. So opportunities for you and your student to continue to learn about colleges. If your senior does not know where they're applying now, it's okay. We will help them get to that point of figuring out what their post-high school plans are going to be. And if your student is going to be that February 1st, March 1st regular decision student, that's fine. There's college opportunities in many different ways to get those 4-year degrees, and we celebrate all of them. So thank you all for your time, and hope that this has been valuable.